Hello friends, welcome back to Strategic Management. And as we have been pursuing strategically managing things, value chains and value webs, at the end of the day, we would realize that the things which we are saying is value chains and value webs and whole of the industry for that matter, because up till now we have tried and understood the factors associated with external environment and the situation between environment, strategy and structure to an extent, and especially with a sustainability element which is the most pressing and most required, environmental sustainability and business sustainability. And we have tried to develop a perspective around second thing which is associated with management of strategy. So, both the things along with each other. The ultimate objective is reaching to the vision which is largely related to prosperity and opulence. And now I would be taking you towards the aspects associated with internal environment, because you see, when we say macro environment and external environment, there has to be an internal environment as well. What are the elements of internal environment, how they influence our strategic choices? We have touched upon these kind of elements briefly while referring to these when we were talking about the culture, values and those kind of things, but structurally we have to focus upon these so as to generate a complete coherence between whatever we have been discussing up till now in terms of macro environment, Porter's 5 forces, which briefly we have touched upon in coherence with what we were discussing about, and then environment, strategy and structure. So, let us see what internal environment structurally provides us as a food for thought in terms of making strategic choices. And strategic choices, when I am saying, is that steering an organizational life cycle vis-a-vis industry life cycle, which I would be touching upon very soon in my subsequent sessions, and then taking a call on steering growth as growth strategy, managing saturation with reference to stability strategy, and I would not say avoiding decline, because that is stability strategy. I would say rejuvenating the declining organization with the perspective of turnaround strategy, and then at micro level with cost and differentiation perspective as well. Now, let us see how internal environment forces support us with these kind of choices which we make. What constitutes an internal environment in business? Logically, it is if you will look at with the perspective of two elements, what is internally associated with us. Can we include customers in this? Yes, if we are actually making things for specific customers wherein we are associated with them as a part of their supply chain and we are considered as good as one of their forces, that can be. Can we think in terms of suppliers as the part of internal elements? And I am talking of some of the external elements which we may consider as part of internal environment as well. For example, workforce. Now, workforce is internal to us, but the point is that somehow should we be thinking in terms of LIC, human resource, in terms of their agents as their internal environment? Can be. To an extent it can be, although I have seen that many life insurance corporation agents, they are associated with different kinds of vocations or businesses as well, but the point is that somehow they have a strong connect with their organization, so much so that they feel like employees, and organization also take them as their internal part many a times, although they are external to them in terms of their earning or let us say responsibility towards the organization. They are entrepreneurs working with the organization in strong coherence with them. So, starting from this kind of a perspective, that there are few external environmental elements or forces which can be included in the internal environment sphere as well. But then there are specific elements or the parts of internal environment which are at the very core of it. We are using a reference from D-body management, using practice and theory to develop skill by Pearson here to explain this context. So, this is the reference which you should be thinking of as far as referring to this kind of a discussion. The author says the internal environment or context consists of those elements of organization or unit within which a manager works, such as its people, culture, structure and technology. Now, it is very interesting, as I said, that there are few aspects which are associated with being considered as internal rather than being external in many cases. So, can we start thinking in terms of control as a key element? Control means direct influencing or influensive communication when we are talking of environmental factors, or let us say the decisions which we take might directly consider those elements and those aspects. For example, if LIC takes a particular kind of a decision, that would definitely be in coherence with the will and wish of their agents, but then their agents do accept that even if they are external to the organization and not so much to be considered as internally employed workforce. For example, Amway, for example, other such kind of companies which nurture through a distribution force who are their members, their customers as well as their retail chain partners or distributors at large. So, any policy structure, any perspective, any plan which Amway would generate would directly be in coherence and consonance with the people who are associated with them. Although they are external to Amway, they might leave the organization, they are not the employees, although employees may also leave, but the point is that Amway might not be able to directly control them basically. So, processes, people, any force which is associated with the control or influence by the organization can also be looked at with this kind of a perspective when we talk of environmental forces. Macro level environment, the forces cannot be controlled by the organization at large. We have seen that political environment for that matter, that somehow business associations, they can pursue political environment, they can put up their policy thoughts in front of the government and in terms of the relevant ministries, but they might not be able to say that this should be done, this must be done, this has to be done. That cannot be the call. But in these kind of cases wherein you have a direct sort of a control, wherein you put up a policy and that although through mutual discussion, but then that has to be accepted at large. The technology you infuse, for example, has a direct control, you have a direct control over technology. So, there are aspects of control and I would not say not to be controlled or non-control, but control is the key word when we talk of. Control means not controlling per se, commanding, no, not that way, but to influence as far as your structure and your policy framework, your vision goes, wherein it directly influences these elements and these aspects. So, people, culture, structure and technology largely. So, people, even if they are not directly associated with, and when I am saying people in Amway situation or in several other situations, that can be people who are not directly employed by you. In many cases, customers also, if you are strongly a part of that value chain, and somehow we have talked about. Culture, which is very internal to you, because you have specific values, we have talked about that. So, just recall those sessions and focus upon that. Structure, how do you communicate amongst your stakeholders, whom you can directly influence, who are associated intensely with you, including your customers, employees, agents, supply chain partners, retailers. In many organizations, they have a very strong connect with the retailers, so much so that retailers, they become the part of their families. They are external to those organizations, but they may be considered as a part of the organization somewhere between external and internal, or very closely towards being internal to the organization many a times. So, you see, this is how we have to look at environmental forces. So, structure is how you communicate with your stakeholders, including your employees. What kind of a structure you have created in terms of communication, responsibilities and authorities within the organization. Is it a completely flat structure wherein someone is sitting here and everyone is free to do whatever they wish to, or there is a hierarchy associated with this structure wherein the someone at the top communicates with few people, and those few people, they have authorities and responsibilities associated with as far as the hierarchy down the line. and so on. So what kind of a structure you have? Do you have a project based structure? Do you have a complete flat structure? Do you have a complete vertical structure? Do you have a semi vertical structure? Do you have a semi vertical or semi horizontal structure, and so on? And then technology. Technology is also associated with one thing basically, wherein technology is internal to the organization's choice, or the kind of technology that organization would infuse. The internal element is when we say it is internal to us, it is associated with two aspects. One is choice of technology. Many times you develop the technology by yourself, many times you hire the technology or infuse technology at a price as far as. So, one is choice of technology, to what extent you internalize that is the point. And the second element is that how far you adapt that technology. So, adaptation extent of that technology. To what extent you adapt the technology. You adapt the technology to the core, that means so much so that you have ultimately gone for complete automated production. For example, in many organizations they have 100% or more or less to the extent of being 100%, called as 100% extent of production. Let us say storage. IKEA furnitures, they have less human intervention in terms of as far as the storage and godowns go. It is completely managed and maintained with the help of robots, and machines. Lego toys, they have a large automated production. In today's circumstances, many automotive countries, they have large robotic production, robots based production. Basically, many organizations, they have started using drones for several kinds of things basically as far as their organizations go, and so on. So, what kind of adaptation, and these are largely known examples. Then many a times you have complete system of software driven kind of an organization, all through basically 100% software command based kind of a thing basically. So, that can also be done. So, to what extent it is adapted, and today in the world of AI and data sciences and computers driving almost everything, basically sensing almost many things in due course of process. So, how AI is guiding the complete situation in terms of getting insights also. So, what kind of adaptation levels you have in terms of your technology internalization. So, these are the elements of internal environment, and apart from the 4 which we have just discussed, there are 4 more. So, business processes, although related to as far as the technology goes, but the business processes, how you actually look into not only production, but the entire business process, starting from procurement of supplies or raw materials, to processing those raw materials, to infusing those as far into R&D or taking them through R&D, and then or let us say R&D based kind of process augmentation, and then going for production basically, and then going for developing production lines, and then going for distribution, everything. What kind of business processes you are going for? Are you going for completely integrated processes, or you are going for fragmented processes, or you are going for taking the help of so many people, or you are going for completely owned structures as far as the business processes go, including your revenue processes, or let us say accounting processes, and internal management processes, marketing processes, everything. So, functionality and functionalities in association with each other at large. Structure we have just talked about. Objectives, very specifically internal to the organization. These are my objectives which will take me towards the vision and mission which I have foreseen in due course of time. So, very specific objective oriented perspective. So, that is how you decide your objectives, that these are the specific objectives which I would be, because for deciding your objectives you have your vision, mission, environmental analysis associated with that, and that is what we are specifically talking about at this moment, that how internal elements, they guide not only each other, but our business decisions. So, right now we are at this juncture to understand that objectives are internal to us or any organization. So, they are influenced by our own decision making perspective, and they influence our decision in terms of how external environment would be collated when we would be focusing upon developing our objectives. So, external environment, internal environment are always in coherence, or the thoughts around internal environment, external environment are always in coherence, and that coherence is associated with the structure of the organization as well as environmental aspects, even sustainability, which we have talked about. Culture we have just touched upon, and we have talked about that extensively, starting from creating a specific statement which actually deciphers the culture of the organization. Starting from that point to internalizing that culture through different kinds of oaths, through different kinds of meetings, through different kinds of policies, through different kinds of programs which nurture that culture all through. Power, and this is what we are talking of, power structure in the organization. I have just talked about that briefly in my earlier slide, wherein we say responsibilities and authorities. Who would be responsible for what, to what extent they would be responsible for that thing, and to what extent they would feel that responsibility, what kind of power and command they might have, and how they would actually nurture that or use that. I would say not vertically using the power per se, but how they would influence the decisions with the help of the power which they would command in due course of time, how the structure would evolve as far as the whole thing goes. Technology we have talked about. Finances, what kind of retained earnings we would have, what kind of revenue we would be generating, what kind of stocks we would have, what kind of how we would be managing our finances, how we would be distributing the fruits of whatever we are doing, how we would be propel what we are doing in terms of financial management goes, and people of course. So, this is how internal environmental forces, they go up in due course of time, and how internal environment sets precedence for strategy. Now, let us start putting our thought towards how these things they influence, although it is quite evident now, having understood the role of external environment in coherence with whatever we are talking. So, it is quite evident how these calls would be taken, and I would be taking you towards resource based and industrial organization based kind of a view in my next segment, wherein we would be talking about how organizations think in terms of resources and industrial organizational perspective, to culminate the complete thought process. Because you see, the importance here is that we must understand that consideration of environmental factors actually automatically guide our strategic steps in immediate circumstances, which largely guide our strategic pathway. If we focus upon these, we may make categorical choices, even we may shift our choices now and then to augment the complete process as such. But if somehow it automatically happens, then we will not be able to control the life cycle of the organization, which we have talked about. So, each of the above mentioned internal environmental factors, either alone or in combination, can affect an organization and its subsequent strategies, that we have thought of, and that is what authors say. Further, authors suggest that general existing concepts of SWOT analysis provide a basic way of identifying the internal strengths and weaknesses in the organization and addressing them accordingly. Authors subscribe to the point of view that for going ahead, you see, there are several views. You can create matrix also. SWOT analysis is also about generating a matrix, wherein on one axis you may have one consideration, and on the other axis you may have other consideration, and then you have strengths, opportunities, weaknesses and threats. That can also be a call, that can also be done when we are talking about this kind of an analysis. Now, you see, what happens is that when we are talking of the objective is to frame our thoughts into a meaningful structure. So, SWOT analysis, as authors say, provides a basic way of identifying the internal strengths and weaknesses in the organization and addressing them accordingly. We are talking about internal environmental factors. How should we be considering them in support of what we have to do? For example, our people. What are their core competencies? If we have strong core competencies amongst our people, our human resource, which cannot be imitated by others, basically we will be talking about that, then definitely it is one of our strengths. Many a times we have a general human resource who is equipped, intelligent, capable, but the point is that those qualifications and capabilities are very common, and every organization has those capabilities and competencies in their human resource, then should we be going for some patented technology which definitely others may not have. So, we have to categorize those into a strength, weakness, opportunity and threat kind of a framework which authors subscribe. There are several other frameworks which you may think of. Let us look into one organization which actually explains and demonstrates how these things can be looked at. 3M, we all know, is a very large organization. It has a presence almost everywhere in this world. Started as a small scale mining venture in northern Minnesota, USA in 1902. You see, starting from mining venture to a consumer products company is not a small thing. The company was named Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company, from where the 3M comes. So, Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company. You see, originally you were focused upon mining and manufacturing only, and then now you are 3M and a truly innovation based company. The company initially set out to mine for a mineral called corundum, which was ideal for making sandpaper and grinding wheels. This was the original objective. 1902 they were focusing upon these kind of things. However, they end up mining a lower graded mineral called anorthosite. They were going for something, they got something. Should they have stopped somehow? 3M did not stop. How did they go for? How did they utilize their internal environmental forces vis-a-vis the external environmental forces? How they worked upon their strengths, opportunities, weaknesses and threats, and how they became a truly innovative company is the whole story. You may go to this paper which we are referring to, D-Body Management Using Practice and Theory to Develop Skill, Pearson, or you may go for another reference from their website. Basically, what could have been a major setback for many organizations did not phase 3M, as the paper and the authors says, and their website also suggests that. The company built on the confidence it has in its internal environment, which promotes innovation and collaboration. They internalized this find of theirs that now they have this mineral. What is to be done? How did they do that? Let us see. One of the key strengths of 3M is on how it treats its promising employees. You have a constraint that you have a mineral which was not your objective, you might not be able to use it somehow, but then what do? So, they focus upon their employees. The organization was keen to develop and nurture its human resources. As they identify it as a major source of advantage for them, they extended the problem to them. In many cases, for example, in our place at Indian Institute of Technology, IIT Roorkee, many times when I have some research problem, I discuss it with my students. Immense brain power, immense capacity, immense imagination, and when the students, they put the brains together and we discuss a problem, many a times we go for a solution. That is what 3M does. They, former chairman of 3M, William L. McKnight, said, this is the quote which is sourced from the paper as well as 3M website. Hire good people, and that is what we are talking about, internal resource. Hire good people and leave them alone. Delegate responsibility and encourage men and women to exercise their initiative. You see, people, structure, delegating responsibility. Management that is destructively critical when mistakes are made kills initiative, and it is essential that we have many people with initiative if we are to continue to grow. Culture is another key factor that has enabled 3M to pave their strategy for success. The organization gives importance to cultivating a good culture and sees it as a major part of their identity. And you see some of the statistics which demonstrate how they have utilized their internal environmental forces vis-a-vis external environment. The unique 15% culture at 3M allows and actively encourages employees to set aside a part of their work time to work on, pursue innovative ideas that they are interested in. And this is the reflection of one of their policies which they have defined because of their internal environmental analysis, and which affects their plans also because they have created work time for that, and that is a strategic step actually which is leading to their innovation, which is leading to a long term strategic pathway. Are we on the same page now? That is how these two lines are important for us to decipher in terms of whatever we have discussed up till now. While collaborating with their managers to ensure the completion of day-to-day tasks, employees are encouraged to explore new and innovative ideas, think creatively and question existing norms. Question existing norms, that means augmentation of processes whenever are required. Multi-layer optical film, cubitron, abrasive grains, M phase, all these are, few of these are trademarks also. AEX hybrid purifier, APC, which is a trademark, flash free adhesive and post-it notes are all examples of innovations that came out of 15% culture. You see, these are world famous innovations which we all use all through. Post-it notes are part of our lives more or less since n number of years, and you would find those in different kinds of colors, and we all know about that. Files you find those, diaries you find those, notebooks you find those, and so on, and refrigerators you find those, when you leave a message for someone that I am leaving and I would come at the end of the day, and so on, and keys are somewhere, and so on. And now I have seen people having those at the back of their mobile phones also, as far as post-it notes go. So those kind of things are there. 3M also emphasizes staying updated on the technology front. Technology is classified into the areas of materials, and they could produce so many products because of their knowledge in materials, processing, capabilities, digital and applications. And where those products would be used, if you have found out a specific material, how to use it for end sales, basically, for what purpose, that has to be defined all through. And this is an important thing which you would realize, that they boast of 60,000 products in their portfolio. For how product portfolios are generated, you can visit my videos on product and brand management which we released earlier, and the subject is going on. So these are 4 important lines which we have taken from 3M website. This resulted in 3M producing and bringing about innovations. 3M currently boasts over 60,000 products in their portfolio under different categories, including abrasives, adhesives, automotive parts, building materials, electronic materials, electrical, medical parts, office supplies, personal protective equipment, to name a few. How could you diverse that much in terms of in so many product categories? Again, for categories you may refer to product and brand management and try and understand, that at the core of it, if 3M is saying, and if authors are saying who have studied 3M at the core, that they internalized their internal forces to being their strength in coherence with the external environmental forces, and made categorical strategic choices which actually created diversified product categories for them, which are related to several kinds of organizations and businesses in due course of time, then it is worth understanding. You see, these are some of the statistics, for example, wherein brand value in millions of US dollars when we talk about 3M, and this is how they raised their brand value. In 2023, it is 9,791 million US dollars. Spending on research and development from 2010 to 2020, it is consistent. If you will go for brand value, it was in 2010 $3,586 million, and this research and development investment is more or less similar. They have raised it to $1,862 million, but more or less similar. That means they were always focused upon investing in research and development and knew that this would give them dividends in terms of raising their brand value as such. And that is what we are talking of, converting environmental elements into your strengths in coherence with external environment forces for taking specific strategic steps. I would be coming back to you with a detailed discussion on resource based perspective on developing strategic pathway, and then industrial organizational perspective for developing strategic pathway in my next segments. Till then, goodbye.